Hello, and welcome to episode 5.9, the December 10th, 2025 Hibernation edition, and the final edition for 2025 of Notes from the Aisle Seat, the podcast that covers the arts in northern Chautauqua County, sponsored by the 1891 Fredonia Opera House. My name is Tom Laughlin, and I'm your host as we bring you news and information about arts events at the Opera House and around the region, including interviews with artists and creators across the county. Not being tied down to a 9-to-5 job any longer, I have noticed several ways in which my daily routines have changed. Among them is the time of day I happen to wake up in the morning. I found that in the summer, I am up most mornings before 7 a.m. as the light begins to flood the bedroom. But in the winter, I sometimes don't wake up until 8 a.m. or later, as the sun doesn't even rise until 7:45, and the days are generally gray and cloudy. I call this the hibernation effect, as everything in nature seems poised to get me to slow down and stay indoors. There's less daylight time to get things done, and the cold and snow does not make me eager to venture outdoors for any reason. Even today, as I record this, I decided it was better to spend 30 minutes on the treadmill indoors rather than venture outside for a walk in 14-degree temperatures. And frankly, I kind of like this hibernation time. Since the holidays now tend to make people anxious and pressed for time, I'd recommend finding one weekend at least to stay in and hibernate. It's good for your stress levels. The upcoming Live at the Met presentation on Saturday, December 13th is a production of Giordano Umberto's best-known opera, Andrea Chénier. Here's the conversation I had with Mr. Tim Kennedy about this enthralling opera. Joining me now to talk about the upcoming performance live at the Met of Andrea Chénier is my good friend, Mr. Tim Kennedy. He is the founder and artistic director emeritus of Buffalo Opera Unlimited. And Tim, as always, wonderful to have you here on the podcast.
Well, it's always great to be here. Always great to be here. Exciting to do this. And I've never done it before. It's nerve-wracking, but I enjoy it. Anyway,
You'll be fine.
thanks for asking me.
Andrea Chénier is an opera that is set in the French Revolution. And can you give us a little bit? Let's start with the plot. What's the storyline behind it?
Oh, well, it's basically a tragic love triangle between this one of the greatest poets, yeah, of that century. He was the aristocrat Madeleine de Coigny, and the Revolutionary Guard Girard, and who uses his power to condemn Chenier to death, leading to the opera's dramatic conclusion as the lovers face the guillotine together. My God, and if you ever see a guillotine, my gosh, I mean, it's enough to send chills through you. I mean, to just see an actual physical presentation of that guillotine, it's enough to just shake you in your boots. And they use it a lot in these operas. Yeah.
Well, the whole story of the French Revolution is very nerve-wracking,
Oh, isn't it?
and I mean the time period, the Reign of Terror, and these are people who you know are sort of caught up in this whole thing, and I think that Umberto Giordano, who composed this opera, really took that time period and placed it to music in a really melodramatic way. I believe this is an opera in the Verismo style. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Very much in the Verismo style. And, which has everything to do with, the naturalization. It usually has to do with drama and the killings. And believe me, this is true Verismo, very much Verismo. You can't get more Verismo than this unless you're doing Pagliacci, something like that.
It's full of
Yeah,
intrigue too. I mean, there's there's a little second act has a little spying going on. The,
yeah,
the first act actually takes place in a ball during a party, and
yeah, Salon. Yeah.
there's lots of things that are happening.
The first act is in a salon, and they ask Andre Chenier to what's his idea or his concept of what's going on during the French Revolution. And he kind of doesn't want to do it, but they kind of goad him into it. And he talks about he tells, by the way, I should say, excuse me for stopping, that to sing this role, you need an incredible tenor.
Yeah,
There are four arias in this opera for the tenor.
hmm
So, you can't have just anybody come. It has to be one of the top tenors, and Beczala is the reigning tenor right now. Jonas Kaufman has done it, but the Mets using Betslava. Everybody always has problems saying his name, but it's Polish and it's more vowel. I think it's more consonants and vowels. But anyway,
yeah.
um, he's um, he's wonderful for it. I'm looking forward to seeing him on the 13th to hear it on HD. But he does. There are absolutely four arias that he has to sing in this entire thing. But anyway, his first one is called the Improviso, and he talks about this wonderful situation where about the sky and taking a walk and how beautiful things are. And then he goes by a churchyard and he sees the priest collecting money, and he also sees the beggars who are wanting money, and they wanting some money on food and they can't get it from the priest. Well, he's saying this during the French Revolution in a salon with all these aristocrats, and some of them actually walk out. They're just ashamed, especially the priest, when he says something negative about the priest. So it just goes to show you all the kinds of things that are happening during the French Revolution. And then Gerard, who has been servant to the aristocracy, comes in with a group of his father comes in and begs for things. His father has been the butler before him and is begging for the aristocracy. Evidently, they just storm into this party that the aristocrats are having. So this just starts all kinds of problems. And, the aristocracy, the woman who then wants the countess then wants them to just forget all of this and let's do a gavotte. So they start dancing. It's just madness in that first act,
Yeah.
and it closes very crazy. Where they just usher these people out.
Well,
It's
it really is like you said, it really is kind of a love triangle in the sense. I mean, that's the main thrust because, Andrea Chénier and Maddalena,
Maddalena, yeah.
Andrea Chénier and Maddalena eventually meet in the second act secretly. And what they don't know is that Gerard is also in love with Maddalena too from
Oh yeah,
childhood because he was a servant while they were both growing up in the same place. So this love triangle takes place, and then there's a point where Chenier is arrested for some writings he had done, and he's arrested at Gerard's behest. And then Gerard, I guess, tries to, tells Maddalena that I can free him if you, will sleep with me. And she
sure.
says, well, okay. But for some reason, he has a change of heart and says, maybe not. I see you love him very much, so I'm going to try and get him freed. And then the story goes on from there. But eventually, as you say, they both face the guillotine at the end because Gerard's efforts are unsuccessful. And Maddalena actually, I guess, chooses to change place with another woman who was supposed to go to the guillotine, and she goes herself.
Yes.
And they have this great duet at the end. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great duet, and Gerard has a change of heart too, and this is even after they have the sword fight, and he's wounded. you
Hmm.
know, very seriously. But when it's time for them to make the pronouncement for him to the guillotine, Gerard comes to his aid and says good things about him. So it's you know it's I don't know, bad guy turns good. I don't know, but it doesn't save him at the end. And so they do this incredible duet before they go to the guillotine, and it's 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 all very Verismo. You can't I don't know anything. And all of the other operas, there's so much energy. But what's fascinating also about this is the fashion sense of these during the French Revolution. Now, who would think anything about fashion when you got people being guillotined, you know? But each group wears different kinds of clothing.
Uh-huh.
I was just that really fascinated me because usually the enemy, they've got on their uniforms, you got on their uniforms, but there really was a kind of fashion sense about who wore what. For instance, they even called them the poor people were the sans culotte. Now that used to be a kind of you've probably heard the expression the culottes. That was some kind of fashion. I guess they still wear them.
Hmm.
They're pants, but they stop at the knees.
Right.
Now the aristocracy was wearing that, but if you were against that sans culotte, you
Hmm.
wore long trousers.
Hmm.
And it was just so, I mean, you just knew who the enemy or who was pro monarchy or who was against monarchy by the way they dressed.
Wow.
And they had crazy hairstyles also. So I said, okay, this is interesting. Fashion is determining just who you are during that time. I never knew that fashion would have such an important part of the French Revolution, but evidently it did. Yeah.
Wow, that's an interesting side twist, I think, that
Yeah.
because some of those pictures of, especially at the ball in the first act, the Met must have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on the gowns and the wigs. I mean, it's just incredible visually to
Yeah.
see it, on the stage. It's
Yeah,
something else.
that's what I was thinking. I said, "Oh my gosh, the director of this is kind of has his work ahead of him. It's really something." Yeah,
Yeah, it's really something. Let's
yeah,
talk a little bit about Giordano as a composer. What do you
yeah.
find to be his outstanding characteristics in terms of this particular opera? What about his music that sort of will catch the audience's ear?
The music to me is it has a lot to do with the arias, of course, are the most important part. And as I said, you got four. You need a tenor who's going to sing four arias. So the background of the tenors who have done it, the great tenors, everyone, loads of them have tried it, and Beczala is the reigning tenor today to do this. Jonas Kaufman has done it. In the past, you had people like Domingo, but they say Corelli was incredible, especially in one of the four arias that he sung. I've listened to that, and Corelli, it's just you need a voice that's big and dramatic, so that can carry these things. And the Maddalena has to be a fine soprano, and they've got Yoncheva these days, who is Bulgarian soprano, but a lot of famous sopranos have done it. The past one, the best kind of combination, one of the best, I should say, is Corelli and Tebaldi.
Hmm.
And that's the kind of voices you need, big voices. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the baritones also. You have need Cornell McNeil to do things like that from the old school. But I mean, yeah, it calls for top line singers to do this because the music demands it. And the melodies, they're just absolutely sensational. And most of them tell stories because, Chenier talks about being a soldier in one of the arias, and his last aria, Come un bel di maggio, is about a beautiful day, and then he talks about his ending and what's going to happen at the end of his life just before he gets taken to the guillotine. And he
Mhm.
does this wonderful duet, and they go hand in hand together in there. And as you said, Madalena does these things like, she goes in instead of this woman with children, she takes her place and she goes to the guillotine hand in hand. So it's pure, pure Verismo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really quite something. And I know there's a famous, very famous La Mama Morta for the soprano in the third act, I believe.
Yeah.
That one actually I discovered in my research was featured in Philadelphia with Tom Hanks, the movie.
Oh yeah, I did read something about that. Was that when he did his movie about called was it the Philadelphia
Yeah,
story?
just
Okay.
Philadelphia.
Okay. La
Yeah,
Mama Morta.
Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington, and in the
Yeah,
background in
okay.
one of the scenes you can hear La Mama Morta.
Yeah, Maria Callas.
Yes, Maria Callas on the
Yeah,
soundtrack. That's
yeah,
right. That's
yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a very famous aria too, as far as that's concerned.
Well, they're saying good things about Betslava, so I'm looking forward to hearing him. But I mean, he can do it, and I mean, he's doing everything anyway.
Yeah.
He's certainly one of the top A-list tenors. Anyway, like you said earlier, please come see it. Please go see it. It's going for those who might not be aware of it. It's going to be a tour de force. Great piece of music. Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
is. It is. It's really one of those operas that, like, when you think about opera, you think about something like Andrea Chénier.
yeah. You do.
It's a masterpiece of a dramatic Verismo opera. Tim, thank you as always for coming and sharing your
Okay,
expertise with me. I appreciate it, more than you know probably, and I know we'll have some live at the Mets next season, and actually, coming in the spring, and I hope I'll be able to bring you back for one or two of those. Okay.
okay. Sounds good.
All
Sounds
right.
like a plan. All right.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. Bye-bye.
Andrea Chénier will be screened on Saturday, December 13th, beginning at 1 p.m. Of special note, if you'd like even more background on this opera, or you'd like to ask a question, you should make a point to be at the Opera House by 12:30 p.m. to hear Professor Don Marazzo, producer of SUNY Fredonia's Hillman Opera and assistant professor of voice, give a pre-show talk and Q&A session. Tickets for Live at the Met are $20 for adults, $18 for members, and $10 for students. Call the box office at 716-679-1891 for tickets, or go online at www.fredopera.org/tickets. Part of the Arts in the Afternoon, which is sponsored by Dr. James M. and Marcia Merrins, Live at the Met is underwritten with support from Daniel S. Kaufman and Timothy W. Beaver. I think it's most unlikely that when Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol, he expected it would become one of the world's most popular and well-known Christmas tales around the world. Published on December 19th, 1843, the first 6,000 copies sold out by Christmas Eve. Since then, the book has never been out of print and has become a theatrical staple in theaters across the U.S. Main Street Studios will be presenting its version of the classic, and I called in the production's director, Mike Lee, to discuss the show. Well, I'm being joined now by a man who wears many hats. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors at the town of Pomfret, but since this is not a political program, but one of arts and entertainment, I should introduce him as the director of the upcoming production of A Christmas Carol over at Main Street Studios. His name is Mike Lee, and Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me today, Tom.
No problem. No problem. Wonderful, wonderful to have you. Mike, let me ask you the first question. Obviously, is how do you uh, balance all the time between directing such a large program and everything else you have to do in your life?
Well, it's been nice to have a lot of really wonderful supporting players around myself. I've been involved in productions at Main Street Studios since the community theater project got started in the summer of 2023 with Guys and Dolls, and it's been nice to see that they've had just an overwhelming response from the community of people who want to come and see the shows, people who want to come and get involved, both on stage and behind the scenes. And that means that I've been able to really depend on a lot of the other people who have the experience around me from doing shows like this before to lean on to ask questions about how exactly do we get lighting set up? How exactly do we structure scene breakdowns and make sure that we can plan for everything that we need to have so we're best using actors' times? There are people who I can lean on who have done all of this before that I can draw from, and so a lot of that organizational frameworks already has already been there, and it's great to be able to lean on that and depend on that.
Yeah, that's always a great thing to walk into, to have such a great supporting cast helping you.
Mhm.
The Christmas Carol is so well known. Everybody knows the story. It actually is one of my favorite Christmas stories, if not my actual favorite. I mean, I love the show. I love the play. I love the Dickens novel. What is it
Mhm.
about Christmas Carol that attracts you, however, personally?
I think at the end of the day, it's the message behind A Christmas Carol. There's so much warmth, there's so much fun, there's so much joy, but there's also a deep sincerity to it about this is really a story about what we owe to each other, both as individuals and as a part of a community, and what we owe to ourselves too. It's just there's so much good material to sit and to chew on and to think about, and it's so easy to engage with in such a way that really anyone can come in off the street with familiarity with the show or coming in and seeing it for the first time and be able to both have a wonderful time and be able to have something that they walk away with that will hopefully sit with them and be something that we can all reflect on.
Yes, I find that that's the same case. I don't know what it is about the story, but it to me it is a very heartwarming story, and I think you're correct in pointing out how that sense of change that comes over Ebenezer Scrooge is
Mhm.
really remarkable. Let's talk about a little bit about the cast. Obviously, we're going to want to know who's in it, who's going to be the players, and I've got your cast list up here on Facebook, so we don't have to go through every single member. It would
Mhm.
take us the rest of the interview, but uh, let's hit the highlights. Let's start with Ebenezer Scrooge.
Mhm. So our Ebenezer Scrooge is Michael Corey. This is my first time working with him. And I've been very impressed with what he's brought to the table. Knowing him out of character, I would describe him as a lighthearted bundle of joy. And I'll be honest, it surprised me when he came to his audition and showed me the dark, brooding energy that Scrooge really carries with him throughout most of the show. And that made me go, oh, this guy really is someone who's going to be able to be in a position to carry this role and be able to do well with it. And he's just been a delight to work with. And I think he's going to delight the audience just as much as he's been a treat for everyone else to work with, including myself.
That's great. He's a difficult character to play because I think there's
Hmm.
I think there's a lot more to him. I think he's been sort of painted very stereotypically
Hmm.
in some stories, but he's actually quite a complex character. What do you find to be the most interesting aspect about Scrooge?
You really get to start picking apart pieces of his psyche as you travel through time with the three different spirits. In the introduction to the show, you absolutely see that two-dimensional picture of him that's painted as just a grumpy old man who wants to be left alone and doesn't have any joy in his life. But along with Scrooge, you get to go and see the pieces of joy that he does have in his life, the pieces of joy that do drive him, the thoughtfulness that he has towards other people that he's put a lid on over the years as a result of honestly the same thing everybody goes through. Nobody goes through life unscathed. Scrooge certainly doesn't go through life unscathed, but he gets presented the question of what do you do with that at the end of the day? What do you want that to look like? What version of yourself do you want to be? Do you want to be this version of yourself that you're seeing in the future with letting the Cratchit family suffer all of these tragedies because you're not taking care of them with no one missing you after you're gone? Or do you want to be like your nephew Fred, who brings delight to everyone he encounters because he carries this over-the-top high energy with him and makes sure to brighten everyone's day? Nobody can make that choice but you, which is told to Scrooge and honestly is told to all of us as well. He's so multifaceted and we can see him process those moments in his past and in his present where he started losing some of that joy and watch him start to think about, well, why did I let this become my whole being? Why did I let this be the driving force that carries me through into the present person that I am today? It's
Yeah.
really an amazing journey he goes through.
It really is. I see you're doing it with a couple of narrators, so you have a
Mhm.
narrator format going on. You've got Richard Newton and Janie Wagner as narrators. How's that working out?
Oh, it's just been a lot of fun. So the show is really presented like a story's being read to you in just about every version of it that you can find. And so we're letting our narrators bring a lot of that energy to the actual production, without giving away too much. They're going to give them a lot of freedom to be able to move around the space and present to the audience the way that they so choose. And they both have a lot of experience presenting and performing in that way, and they're bringing a lot of fun to the energy, weave a lot of fun energy weaving in and out of the scenes, and really helping to elevate and bring the show to life that way.
And what about your Cratchit family? They're always the heart of the show, I find. You have to have a good Cratchit family, otherwise the show just falls flat.
So I was telling them just last night that we haven't had a chance to do as many of the rehearsals as I would have liked for the Cratchit family, but I had to stop them after the end of one of the scenes that we were working on to tell them this felt like sitting down at a family dinner table, watching this scene, watching the children bicker and have their little moments where they laugh and shove and push on each other a little bit, with the parents equal parts delightful and exasperated by the chaos that's going on around the table and the warmth that they all bring to it. They have just blown me away with, again, just the heart that everyone's bringing to this. It's a very easy show to let become too heavy, let become too dark. And I think that we really wanted to try to counterbalance it and try to find a lot of that joy, a lot of that heart, let people really leave the theater smiling at the end of the night. And the Cratchit family is such an important anchor for that. And they've done it for me personally. I think that's what everyone else is going to experience when they come see it too.
Yeah, I think you've nailed that. How about the ghosts? Technically speaking, they're so hard to do. Have you decided to try to do anything particularly special with the ghosts, or are you just sort of playing it straight given the space that you're working in?
So I'm trying a couple of interesting things with our ghosts. We decided to cast a lot of the ghosts fairly blind when it comes to age, gender, background, etc., because there really is nothing in terms of descriptors for the ghosts other than this ghost is larger than life. This ghost is terrifying. This ghost is a little bit ethereal and moves through the world this way. So they're each bringing a very, very unique energy to the performances of the ghosts. And I don't want to spoil all of the surprises that we have for them, but I will just say that they're some of the parts of the show that I'm most excited for people to have the chance to come and see some of the tricks and some of the ideas that we have up our sleeve, because I think the ghosts are doing a particularly commendable job in bringing the energy and the messages of the story home. And honestly, I think some very fun ways, some of the ways that we've given from the director team to for ideas for them to try out, and so much that they're bringing in themselves and that they are really carrying a lot of their own idea. And you can tell that they've sat with the text, they've read through it, they understand what we're trying to convey to Scrooge, and they're all bringing such different performances. I had some very specific ideas in my mind early on for what I wanted the ghosts to be like, and I let them know that, but then a lot of them brought their own energy to the performance as well, and we met in the middle. We tried some things, see what works, what doesn't, and they've impressed me with all of the different ideas and energies that they've brought.
Yeah, that they're
I
they're
told them that I want their job to be to boss Scrooge around on stage as much as they possibly can, and you got to see a couple of eyes light up and start twinkling when I brought that message out, and they are having a grand old time doing just that.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. What about how have you incorporated, to me the show, I've always found that the show kind of lifts off the stage a little bit more when you can add like music and choreography and things along that lines. Have you got any of that folded into this particular production?
I'm very glad that you asked me that specifically. So, one of the noteworthy scenes when we're visiting with the Ghost of Christmas Past is the party that happens at Fezziwig's every few years, or every year, and we visit it on a number of different years. And one idea that I had that I'm very, very excited to be able to bring to life is that I reached out to the Grange Number One All-Star Band that plays for the Grange dances that happened, the contra dances that happen once a month, and they're actually going to be playing some live music for us for the Fezziwig parties. And then our choreographer has based some of the dances and the other movement that's going to be happening there on period appropriate dances that would have fit for the piece that our band has selected. That is actually a piece that is period authentic, that's Dickens wrote about as being appropriate for A Christmas Carol. So Our musicians and our choreographer have done their homework, and it's going to be something that is going to fit in so neatly with the show. It's one of the things I'm more excited for people to come and see.
That does really sound exciting. I must admit, I've always tried to find some way to add that kind of musical festive element with the dance and the song and everything like that because I think the performances, the theatrical experience, if you will, the theatricality of the play
Hmm.
really can be made much more enjoyable and actually deeper if you can get that
Hmm.
kind of stuff in there.
Yeah, we have a couple of period appropriate social dances that are typically done at the Grange, at their contra dances on those monthly basis, and I really like the way that that ends up feeling. It really feels like rather than a piece that's very formal where everyone's moving in true lockstep that's been ironed down or polished down to a mirror shine, it still feels like a social dance. It still feels like people who are looking around to enjoy and see who's going to do what and having a laugh and enjoying their time together. And it feels lived in like that. And I'm very, very excited for folks to get the chance to experience that.
Is there one thing, Mike, as the director that you have sort of, found particularly challenging in terms of the show, the story, and the space that you're really focusing on, and that you think the audiences will find they'll just kind of have a aha moment?
I'm going to have to think about that one for a second. That's a tough question. The space is always, it's both a blessing and a boon at the same time because we are working in what one point was a card seed warehouse and factory, and that gives us both the freedom to be able to set that space up any way we want, and also then in some ways you're working with the problem of the blank page. The space could be anything. How exactly do we want to set it up to best tell the story that we're working with here? I think we've set it up in a way that's going to give our actors a lot of freedom to tell this essentially storybook production to the audience. I think we found a way to make that space come to life in a way that's really going to benefit A Christmas Carol specifically. We're working with a couple of folks to really make sure that it comes to life and it has the Christmas energy from the moment you walk in to watching the production to visiting the cafe downstairs between acts and at the top of the show. I think folks are going to find a lot of warmth in that space that is going to be different from what they've seen in previous productions because we have so much flexibility with what we do with that space.
That sounds really, really good. I mean, I do like the flexibility and all that kind of stuff. Well, Mike, as a person who has both directed a couple of productions of it and been in some, I wish you the very best. Every time I'm connected with A Christmas Carol, I just think it's from a theatrical point of view, everybody in the the inside joke in the theater world is, oh, you do this show to make money. You do this show to make money. But I think it's more than that, and it sounds like you're going to make it more than that.
And what I told the cast on the first night that we got together, and I still honestly hold it true, is that our first goal when we come together is to follow the spirit of A Christmas Carol. We are a community theater. I want for our first goal to be to find community with each other, to connect with the community as we're going out and doing different things. We're going to be doing a reading of A Christmas Carol at the Barker Library on the 20th for any kids and their families that want to come in. We're trying to work with the um, Contradance, Grange Number One All-Star Band, just whatever ways that we can to connect with the community and really make it about the spirit of A Christmas Carol. Um, and I think that's what's going to make this particularly special and to give a different kind of energy to this than folks might be used to seeing. I told folks that if we can focus on the sense of community and we build a wonderful experience for everyone coming in, and the show is just fine, I'm happy with that outcome. But I think because of the way that we chose to focus on all of this, we have that deep sense of community. We have that connection between each other. Folks are coming to rehearsal every night and laughing, and they're giving it their 100% and more. I think we've got something really special for folks to come out and see.
Excellent, Mike. Excellent. I wish you all the best. And please convey my very best to your cast and crew and everybody that's involved. It sounds like it's going to be a wonderful 2 weekends in the theater.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you, Mike. A Christmas Carol will be presented at Main Street Studios over the next 2 weekends, Thursday through Saturday, December 11th through 13th, and again Friday and Saturday, December 19th and 20th, beginning at 7:30 p.m., with a matinee performance on Saturday, December 13th at 2 p.m. Check the website at mainstreetstudios.org for ticket information, or just click the link at the bottom of the show notes to go straight to their ticket website. Here is the arts calendar for December 10th through 24th, 2025. The Rockefeller Arts Center will be presenting the Doo-Wop Project in a concert entitled A Doo-Wop Christmas on Thursday, December 11th at 7:30 p.m. You can listen to an interview with project founder and member Dominic Nolfi in the previous episode of this podcast. Call 716-673-3501 for ticket information or online at www.fredonia.edu/tickets. The SUNY Fredonia Double Reeds Ensemble will present a holiday pop-up concert on Friday, December 12th at 3 p.m. in the Mason Hall Student Lounge, room 1004. At the Darwin R. Barker Library, the photography exhibit Faces of Ukraine, the photography of Patrick Stokes, continues until December 31st. Also, as noted in the interview with Mike Lee, the cast of the Main Street Studios production of A Christmas Carol will present a reading of selections from the holiday classic on Saturday, December 20th, beginning at 11 a.m. And remember, if you have an arts event you'd like mentioned on the arts calendar, please contact us at the Opera House at 716-679-1891 or email us at operahouse@fredopera.org. Please give us at least a month's notice in advance of your event to ensure a timely listing. Also, there's still time to become a member of the 1891 Fredonia Opera House. Without the generous support of our members and donors, we would not be able to present the events and concerts that we do. Your membership is critical to making it possible to bring the arts to Northern Chautauqua region, and we are grateful for every member. Membership has its benefits, including being a charitable donation for 2025. So consider joining today by clicking the link at the bottom of the show notes and choosing your level of membership. And if you're still looking for holiday gift ideas, Opera House memberships also make excellent holiday gifts for your family and friends. So consider the gift of membership this holiday season. And thank you.
At the Holiday Central, the station where we all will climb aboard, the express that'll swing us into Christmas, the one gift that I know I will afford.
Finally, to wrap up this festive episode, the Lakeshore Center for the Arts is presenting a different kind of Christmas concert, entitled Christmas with Bill Ward and Friends. It's an evening of original Christmas songs, all written by Bill, with a few holiday favorites thrown in. Here's Bill to talk about his upcoming concert. I'm pleased to be joined now by Mr. Bill Ward. Bill is a local musician here in the Chautauqua region. He's mostly centered around the Mayville, Jamestown area, and he's coming to the Lakeshore Center for the Arts on Saturday, December 13th at 2 o'clock to present a program called Christmas with Bill Ward and Friends. So, Bill, it's lovely to meet you and lovely to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Tom.
Great. I did as much research as I possibly could, to find out a little bit about your music and who you were and stuff like that. And, it caught me a little bit by surprise, I guess, to find out how long you've been around. So tell me, how long have you been around?
Well, and you introduced me as a local artist. I prefer to refer to myself as a regional artist.
Okay.
I've performed a lot in the tri-state area, up and down Western New York State, a lot. I do great deal of stuff in Buffalo with friends of mine out there, and they come down here and hang out with me. So much of that is a result of the fact that I've been around so long. I'm in my sixth decade of performing right now. I mean, that makes it sound longer than it really is. But I started in the early '70s playing music and writing music and really playing with some of the best musicians in the tri-state area. It's been a pleasure of mine. As a matter of fact, it's been probably the way that I've survived as long as I have, as I've always found folks that were much better than I am to play with. and you're gonna meet a couple of them on the event that we're about to talk about.
That's great. Just out of curiosity, do you have any sense of what maybe makes the tri-state region that you play around in special? Is there like a special circuit of wonderful places that you play, or particular musicians or anything like that?
Well, yes and yes. You know, there are a lot. When I started cutting my teeth in the music scene, especially in the Chautauqua County area, I was even then as a teenager amazed at the number of really really good musicians. And, you know, at that time there were those of us that were, you know, playing a lot and connecting a lot. We had folks like the Maniacs who they and I started about the same time. They're all good friends of mine, and we, you know, the network that you have from that sort of thing brings you to, of course, Buffalo and Cleveland and even Pittsburgh and all the way in between there. I'm kind of mentioning those towns as maybe boundaries for this area that we're talking about. But you do get connect with folks throughout that area when you're, or throughout any area when you're playing it, and this area in particular seemed to have spawned just a lot of great, and still does a lot. I can't, as I do a special guest series. We call it Sunday Sessions at Big Inlet Brewing on Sundays in the summertime. And I bring in folks from all over the place, Buffalo and Cleveland and Pittsburgh and around here, of course, a lot from around here. And the number of folks who are just really great players and writers, it just astounds me. I bring somebody in knowing that they're good, but then all of a sudden you get this realization that these people are great, you know, and they're writing songs that should be heard, and they're playing music in a way that should be heard. And the venues, you know, all of that it changes, it ebbs and flows. You know, I mentioned Big Inlet. That's an example of one of the great places to play because of the area that they have set up. The tap room is nice, but of course their outside area is pretty well known as a music venue. As a matter of fact, we do our Mayville Bluegrass Festival there in August, and that's you know, it's a perfect spot, kind of a turnkey spot for a festival.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been there a couple of times myself, and it really is a lovely place, particularly in the summer.
Sure,
But it's winter, so we have to go indoors. So we're going to play at Lakeshore Center for the Arts here
we are.
with your Christmas with your friends. First of all, let's talk about the musicians you're going to bring with you. A couple of fine musicians I see that you played with before.
Oh yeah, many years. I've played with both of them quite a few years. Obviously, one of them is older than the other, so I've played with him a bit longer. John Cross and I have a musical affiliation that goes back the better part of 40 years. He walked in. I had a band in the late 80s that we were at a kind of a festival-ish situation, and John had just come into Jamestown, and he brought his saxophone to the thing and never met any of us, but in order to get in free, he said he was with the band. And and that day he was, and he has been ever since. So he and I do a lot of different things. He is a great band leader and composer and mover and shaker in the orchestral, especially and big band and jazz realm. And he he deigns to still play with me, which is really very cool. So he and I, as I said, have probably, we do have the longest of any of the musicians that I play with, have the longest running affiliation. And so we travel down to the Virgin Islands. As a matter of fact, we'll be heading there in February to, of course, relax. And but we get to play some gigs around there between St. John and St. Thomas. So he and I have been around together for a long time. Adam McKillop was one of my students in the Infinity Performing Arts Project. Adam and I have known each other for a long time, and again, he plays and has played with a lot of different entities. He has a tremendous solo presence, a good songwriter. He's now with a band called Smilo and the Ghost, who are moving and shaking the kind of progressive folk scene. So it's really a treat to be able to grab him, especially off the road, and do something like this. The three of us, well, each of us have a really great sense of each other when we play. There's this synergy that really, if I can use a really overworked word, Adam and John bring both of them bring that dynamic into these performances.
Your Christmas show is unusual in a sense because people aren't going to hear like the usual kind of Christmas songs. They're going to hear Christmas songs that you wrote. I mean, you have an album out that was called, I believe, the Christmas Sessions, and you did that with a little band called the Dorfels. Talk a little bit about writing Christmas songs as a songwriter, because many people write one or two Christmas songs, but you created a whole album of your own stuff.
Yeah, and that's a result of the fact that I've probably written more Christmas songs than any other. Oh, I know I have. I have written at least a Christmas song every year for the past, I don't know, 30 years. And the Dorfels and I established an affiliation way back when we had the original Mayville Bluegrass Festival in the early 2000s in Lakeside Park. They were a family band, the Dorfel family. They called themselves. Mom and Dad played, and they got all the kids as soon as they were really able to pick up anything to play in the band and do something. The unusual part of this is that many of them became virtuosos at their craft. If you listen to the Christmas Sessions, which was in 2008, by the way, you'll hear, really, really tremendous guitar and mandolin playing and bass playing. They did all the stuff other than, I did some guitar work. And as a matter of fact, I farmed out some of the guitar work to Ben Dorfel, who at that time was 12 years old and much better than me. So in terms of recording, it was more efficient to let him take some of that stuff over. But anyway, I'm very proud of that effort because it brought some of these songs together. They had very little time to work on it. We recorded this virtually in maybe 2 days. We set up a studio in the basement of Hurlbut Church in Chautauqua. But as a Christian person and a person who really loves the story of the birth of Jesus, I'm always inspired, and now sort of compelled because everybody expects me to write a Christmas song every year. There's just so much material there. I would point to one song in particular that kind of expresses my attitude about the whole thing. It's called "Angels Said It True," and it talks about the fact that you can get hung up on the particulars of the story. That is, what was this? Did the wise men were there only really three wise men? Were there wise men at all? Were there? Did they come right to the manger, or was he 3 or 4 years old by the time they got there? What was was the star really 3 planets lined up? But none of that really matters because as a Christian person, you believe that the truth of the story is the reality, and it's not necessarily the historical aspects.
Mm-hmm.
So there are so many things like that. Of course, I do love the traditional aspect of Christmas, and it is it's a treat to be able to draw upon that kind of material. To when you sort of have a story and a a basis laid out for how you're going to do it. It makes it more interesting, if not easier. But the idea of doing my songs at a show, of course, if they start squirming, I'll throw in something traditional. Like you see people heading for the door. But people really like to have, of course, we all put on the Christmas songs. And I love them. I really do love the traditional Christmas songs, and you can't start them soon enough for me. But sometimes people are looking for perhaps something it's kind of like to rinse your face off with, you and art, original art in any form is always, for me, a way to do that. And there's a lot of ways to experience that just, between, let's say, Mayville and Westfield. There's an art gallery. There are some antique stores. There's this beautiful glass place in Westfield. You can go find real, new, fresh art for the holidays, and for me, that's what's nice about it, and I think that's what draws people to it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was really surprised, if you will. I wasn't what I was expecting in terms of saying this guy's got like a whole album of Christmas songs that he wrote. I was very impressed by that, I must say. And I want to pick one of them out, if you don't mind me talking about it, because as you were talking, and as we were talking before I started recording this session, I learned that you're also president of the Chautauqua Rails to Trails. And you have an interesting Christmas song called Christmas Eve at Prospect Station. And I've passed that Prospect Station site many times on hikes up the trails and stuff like that. I wonder if you'd give me a little insight or a little sense of what moved you to write that particular piece.
Wow, you're going to let me plug the trails. Excellent. um as a board member then of Chautauqua Rails to Trails, I was really kind of ordered to write that song. I, there was a tragic event in the late 1800s, 1870s, right at Prospect Station, where it was Christmas Eve. They were traveling late at night, and they were using pot-bellied stoves to keep the coach car warm. And all of a sudden, there was a crack, apparently at some point, in what they call the tender wheel, on the flange in the tender wheel, which is the outside kind of lip of the railroad wheel. When that broke, it sent, I think, the engine to the no, it would have been the tender car, I guess, um, down into a ravine. And that course pulled the rest of the train, especially the coach car, with it, turning over the car and, of course, those stoves, which created an inferno. And so it lost at least 20 lives were lost that day. Um, so throughout the years, there's been a tradition developed over at Prospect Station on Christmas Eve at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We have a kind of a little pilgrimage out there. It's only like not even a quarter-mile walk to the memorial. And it's a beautiful memorial now. One of the railroads donated an actual truck which is the chassis of the where the wheels go in a section of track. So we go out there at 2 o'clock on Christmas Eve every year, and tell the story. And now I sing the song. But Jim Fincher, who was president at the time, said, it'd be really great if you would write a song. So I elicited my friend Mike Bratt, who's a great songwriter, and has co-written some Christmas songs with me and some other songs with me. And I said, Mike, here's the story. What can you come up with something? And he said, well, what do you got? Didn't want to tell him I had anything, but I did. So we sent some stuff back and forth and ended up with that song. And it's a train song. It is a train tragedy song. It talks about the engineer and the porter and their interaction right before this crash. It talks about some of the folks whose lives were lost there. It really kind of tells the story. So everyone is invited at 2 p.m. on Christmas Eve to go out there and do that. Prospect Station up there on Prospect Road in Westfield, New York.
That's great. You know, that's a wonderful story. I was aware of that particular event, but I'm glad I gave you a chance to plug it and
Sure.
get people to go because that's a really nice thing. Yeah, Bill, thank you very much. Listen, it was really a pleasure to meet you. I appreciate everything you do for the region, the music you bring to the region. I think that's wonderful, and I'm really hoping that a big crowd will come out to celebrate with you on the 13th at 2 o'clock at the Lakeshore Center for the Arts. So thanks for talking to me. I appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much, Tom.
Christmas with Bill Ward and Friends will be presented on Saturday, December 13th, beginning at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Lakeshore Center for the Arts Jacqueline Phillips Theater. Tickets are $15 general admission, and while you can take your chances with tickets at the door, it might be best to purchase them online at lakeshorecenterforthearts.com. You can follow the link in the show notes below that will take you straight to the ticket website.
Sweet silver bells all seem to say, throw cares away, Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, that is the song with joyful ring, all caroling. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they pound, raising...
And that's it for this Hibernation edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat. My thanks to Tim Kennedy, Mike Lee, and Bill Ward for being my guests on this episode. Notes from the Aisle Seat is a production of the 1891 Fredonia Opera House in Fredonia, New York. For more information on any of the Opera House's events, call the box office at 716-679-1891, visit the website at www.fredopera.org, or email at operahouse@fredopera.org. Notes from the Aisle Seat is available wherever you get your podcasts and also on the Opera House YouTube channel. If you like this podcast, please consider following us by clicking the follow button on our home website at aisleseat.podbean.com and spreading the word through your social media feeds. If you have an arts event you'd like featured on the podcast, why don't you drop us a line at operahouse@fredopera.org and we'll see about featuring your event. Please try to give us a month's notice in advance if possible to facilitate timely scheduling. If you have any suggestions, comments, or criticisms of the podcast, just drop us a line at operahouse@fredopera.org. We'll be glad to receive your feedback. Notes from the Aisle Seat will be going into hibernation for a bit. And so our next episode will be available on Wednesday, January 28th, 2026. I'm Tom Laughlin, and until then, wishing you a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. Be safe out there, and be kind to one another.
Goethe's final words, more light. Ever since we crawled out of that primordial slime, that's been our unifying cry, more light. Sunlight, torchlight, candlelight, neon, incandescent, light to banish the darkness from our caves, to illuminate our roads, the insides of our refrigerators. Big floods for the night games at Soldiers Field. Little tiny flashlight for those books we read under the covers when we're supposed to be asleep. Light is more than watts and foot candles. Light is metaphor. Thy word is a lamp under my feet. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Lead, kindly light, amid the encircling gloom. Lead thou me on. The night is dark and I am far from home. Lead thou me on. Arise, shine, for thy light is come. Light is knowledge. Light is life. Light is light.